The virtual CISO moment is brought to you by vCISO Services, a leading provider of quality and experienced virtual chief information security officers for small and mid-sized businesses. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. I'm here with Rob Black. He is the founder and CEO of Fractional CISO. Rob, thank you so much for joining us.
Greg, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. I know we've known each other for many years. We started out in the fractional vCISO space almost at the same time. I think you might have had a little bit more time on me, but so I know some of your story. I love seeing how you've grown over the years and the services you provide, but I'd love to hear some of your backstory. Like, how did you get started in this?
Sure. Well, 15 years ago, I think to the day was my first day at RSA Security. So beforehand, I was a software engineer and started at RSA Security, worked on their identity and access management products, was there almost 5 years, then worked for a couple companies, helping them with their security programs. And one day I had this thought, why can't I help every company with their security programs? So 5 years ago, like next week or the week after, I started Fractional CISO. And the idea is to help mid-sized companies with their cybersecurity program. So I think back when we started, you and I started 2017, or for me anyway, was a less obvious thing to do than it is today. But the need has just grown, obviously. And there's a lot of opportunity because the attack surface is so huge for all these small and medium companies, and the needs are just tremendous. What we find is a lot of our clients are, they might have the technology piece okay or good, but on the people and process part, do they need a lot of help. And so that's what we're there to do. We're there to help them with the program, help them to basically get things going and keep things going. And it's been a great past 5 years.
So I guess we're a lot closer than I thought, because I remember the first time that we spoke to each other, I'm like, wow, I'm speaking with this guy who's doing this stuff that I'm trying to do right now. This is great. I can get all the experience. But my founder's date, if you will, is July 23rd. But I didn't actually leave full time until corporate until the end of August I think August of 2017. I wasn't sure in July if the LLC was going to be the way to go. But anyway, I know that when I decided to make the leap 5 years ago, there are a lot of adjectives I could use, and some of them maybe I don't want to say here, but I think scared was one of them. I was scared about the fact that I was so used to a career to having someone else pay me, or I wasn't really an entrepreneur. I kind of went into it blind and really did rely upon peers such as you and other folks that have gone down the path. What was it like for you? And the reason why I'm asking this from the virtual CISO space is that I know that there are a lot of folks out there, particularly with COVID, that have wanted to go down the path of starting their own business. It could be in what we do or something else, information security related. But what were your feelings and maybe points of advice that you might be able to give someone who's just starting out?
Yeah, well, so your time for doing it on the side to making the leap was very short. I formed the LLC end of 2015, so almost 2 years before. I had the website, in some form up, maybe at that point, not with my info on it because, it was working for another company. I had one client on the side in 2016. And, I think all those things were risk reduction activities, right? So do you, have some agreements that you can do, even if you're doing things really small, but can you just help another company? And, even if you're not getting paid market rate, who cares? As long as you can demonstrate, hey, I can add value to this company, I can help them, and they're writing me a check, no matter the size of the check. And then also your process stuff, you're like, oh, I got to figure out how to invoice them. I got to figure out, I have to have a bank account to be able to take the money, right? And there's all these little things that you have to do. So by the time we got to, I would say, maybe 9 months before the day I quit, we had a my wife and I had a very kind of meticulous plan. I actually picked one date and she's like, no, why don't you pick that date? Depending, had to do with the options I had available for the company I was working for. And, but, she, one of the keys for me was she was super, super supportive. I mean, I think she believed in me more than I did. And then, her thing was like, well, she had a stable job and she's like, even if it doesn't work out, you're going to get a job just fine afterwards. So don't worry about it. So I think all those things help. The thing I did not know was how would I be at sales? And I think that's something that a lot of times you're working for a company and, you're doing security delivery or whatever service you're delivering, you're great at that thing, but how are you at sales? And the answer is I am okay at sales and have remained okay at sales. The thing is I just basically start consulting with the client like as soon as I get on the phone, and I think that bridges whatever sales gap I may lack.
There's so many parallels in our story, but you talked about sales. It's like when I first started out, I tried to do cold calling, and
Yeah.
I just am absolutely horrible at it. I think
Right.
maybe I did 4 or 5, and I'm like, never, never, never again. Eventually, I think you do get to, I know this has happened for fractional CISO, that you get to what I like to call a flywheel effect, where you have established yourself as such a known and good provider of services that then you start getting recommendations
Yeah.
down the line. So, but a very similar story on my side. My wife also worked full time, same deal, where it's like, well, if it doesn't work out, she said, well, you can always get another job. And I told her, it's like, no, I think I'm going to retire after this, to tell you the truth. I'm a couple of years older, but I love that part of it, because you talk so much about risk reduction. I think that's the perfect way to describe it when you're getting into running a small business. And the other thing too is that since you are running a small business, that kind of lends some authority, validity to giving advice to other small businesses. So on that note, well, first of all, just what is your typical client base?
Can I just respond to your flywheel comment?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I have a bookshelf over here, but I can't find that book. But anyway, there's a Jim Collins book called Something Flywheel. It's literally, so basically the idea is, you do one activity and then the other and then the other, and that all leads into it. It's like a super thin book, and it's a great book. It sounds like you intuit that in your brain, but I think
I got it from that book.
Oh, you think you read
and
that
it was
book?
funny.
Okay.
It's like I saw you looking off to the side as I was talking about
Yeah.
that. I'm like,
I was like, I think that book's right there, but I don't know where it is now. But it used to be right there on the bookshelf. So
I'm gonna have to look. I know I have I have several on the shelf back there, but I'm pretty sure that's where I got it from.
Yep.
So yeah, but the flywheel effect, you do see that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Basically, like you make a sale, you deliver, the client's happy, they tell their buddy, and then all of a sudden, things go. And, obviously there's some other things in there as well, right? You have to have a good offering that makes sense in that market, that sort of thing, right? So it's not just make a sale and do a good job. I mean, but that's certainly a part of it.
So your flywheel has led you to what type of client base is your primary focus?
Yeah, so we're primarily focused on mid-sized companies, and in the, I would say, technology space. A lot of our clients are SaaS companies, software as a service. When I say mid-sized, that's usually 40 employees to several hundred employees. We do have some smaller and we do have some larger, but the typical would be 50-person company, 100-person company, 150-person company, something like that. And because those size companies have very mature security needs, but they're not going to hire a full-time CISO. I mean, it wouldn't be economical. That person would probably leave in, so many months. And so, that's kind of the niche we fill. Most of our clients are, I would say, technology focused. So less so on non-tech type companies. Now, of course, more and more companies are in the tech space. But even if you were a traditional business, you'd often have maybe a web portal or some sort of piece of technology that lends itself to wanting to have a CISO to help protect it and the rest of your infrastructure.
Do you see in that space the reason why I'm asking is because I see this somewhat is that those are the types of companies that are looking perhaps towards their first SOC 2 and never have
Yeah.
done it before. And you mentioned SaaS. I would imagine that you see that a lot.
So SOC 2 is probably the thing we help companies the most with. I would say, I don't know exactly what percentage, but let's just say 60% of our clients we're helping them with their SOC 2. One way or the other, either helping them get it initially, most often, or maintain it, or, sometimes we get them after they have it and they're like, it's a lot of work to maintain it. Can you help us?
It's I know for some small, mid-sized market, just the concept of the SOC 2 when they first start to have to go down that path, that it's not something that they really organically want to do, but they feel like that they're being pulled into it because their customers are asking for it.
The biggest driver is the sales driver. So basically the thing that you would see as a company is sales are slowing down. I'm not able to sell the large enterprise. I'm getting all these questionnaires. My life is miserable because, I do an okay job answering them, but there's just a lot of friction in the sales system. And the SOC 2 is kind of like a lubricant in that sales system. All of a sudden you get your SOC 2 and the gears start turning and sales becomes way more efficient. And I think that's true in general, just about a mature cybersecurity program. The more mature your cybersecurity program is, the more you can show your customers, hey, we take this seriously, here are all the things that we do, the less likely that's going to be a problem in the sales cycle.
I love that the way you put it. The SOC 2 is a lubricant in the sales cycle. I'll have to remember that quote. So in your space, particularly in the mid-sized SaaS technology company, what would you say now is one of the biggest threats to information security that they have?
Yeah, so the threats are kind of the same regardless of our client or sector. And I'll go with just the whole phishing, spoofing, business email compromise, ransomware, just put those all together. And we see them manifest themselves in different ways, but certainly we've had clients that have almost wired money. We've had clients that have wired money to bad guys. We've had clients where there might be an email compromise and causing some bad behavior. Oh my gosh, knock on wood. But on the ransomware side, we have not seen that with our clients to date, and hopefully that will remain that way. I can't promise that forever. We do obviously do a lot of things that would help to reduce that likelihood, but nothing's perfect. The thing we see though with all this class of problems, with basically the email type problems, things that lead to ransomware, is there are a few control deficiencies that are kind of universal. And the one I will specifically call out a vendor, of course, it's a very big vendor, but it's Microsoft Office 365, Microsoft's 365. Their configuration for email security is maybe the worst I've ever seen. It is so impossible. Every time you go in there, try to get things configured properly for 365. It's maybe not possible. Of course, it's actually possible, but it just seems like it's not lined up. They don't have like the small business package where, hey, just do all these things, get this thing, boom. Their thing, with their security roadmap is basically to sell you more licenses instead of help secure you. They have all sorts of crazy recommendations in there. Some of the stuff is good, but 365 we find to be very troublesome. You should really look at your configuration if you have 365, and you should definitely have an additional phishing tool that sits in there and that's intercepting email on the way in.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I've configured or tried to. I think I've been successful configuring 365 for our environment.
Yes.
As a small business, and sometimes, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I just want to do this one simple thing. Why is this so hard? And then, or why can't I find these logs? Or why can't I get this two-factor? Or what have you?
And then the log length by default is 90 days. And of course, if you have a bad email situation, you may need the compromise may have happened outside of 90 days. There's just so many things that they do that are just totally wrong.
Well, didn't if I
Oh, they may
forgive
have
me.
lengthened it. I don't know, but it was
No,
90
no, no.
days within the past year or so.
No, what I'm thinking, something that I saw recently, and I didn't dive into it as much as I've wanted to yet, but didn't Microsoft just announce that they were offering like some sort of a security consulting service now?
And and they may be, and that's probably a good thing. I mean, to me, smarter defaults would be the step one for them. I mean, the thing is that they just have such huge industry weight. If they just had smaller defaults and everyone was default smarter, and then certain things are like, hey, you don't have two-factor authentication configured right, or hey, or hey, we're not actually scanning the files, the attachments in your email. Um, those would be really nice things for a lot of companies to know.
I'd agree, but and I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but boy, I mean, what an opportunity to create something so complex that 85 to 90% of the world uses, and then in order to make it work right, so consulting service on top of that.
We have a lot of Google Workspace customers, and I will say the situation is way better by default with them. And so that one, we do a configuration review for Google Workspace, but it's usually more, I would say, getting the last 30% instead of the first 30% of configuration. So I think Google Workspace is the thing there. I mean, the problem is obviously so many companies are Microsoft companies. You're obviously going to be a 365 customer. You're not going to just say, oh, we have Windows, we have Azure, but we're going to use Google Workspace. It would make no sense.
Yeah, and I think the only reason why I decided for us to be C365 was just simply that the majority of clients were 365, but we actually kind of run in both spaces as well, just for knowledge base. But that's I see that Microsoft is going to be obviously around for at least the rest of my life. I mean, so you just can't run away from it. I know Windows 11 is now becoming more and more prolific throughout the missing my word there.
Prolific, yeah.
Prolific. Thank you. You should be on this side of it. But what do you see as far as emerging threats for small and mid-sized businesses? Kind of more of the same, or I mean, certainly one of the things I gathered from what you were saying is just it would be so much easier if it was to be compliant and to be secure, because they're not exactly the same. But if the way to set these things up would be simpler, what do you see as like an ongoing challenge for SMBs?
Yeah, so I'll stick with a few control deficiencies again for the business email compromise, spoofing, phishing, ransomware, because the reality is all the other stuff, of course, matters, but there's so many problems in this area that it warrants more attention. So other than, let's say, email configuration / blocking bad emails, scanning files, also the backup quality, I would say even for our good technology clients that come to us, oftentimes the backup quality is just not there. So meaning, oh, we don't have everything backed up. So basically we have some things backed up and like, what about your configuration data? Oh yeah, that's a good point. We probably should do that. Or, oh, we don't have this system backed up. This is rare, it's not encrypted. We aren't managing the key for the encryption. We haven't done a test of our backup. I mean, there's there's all these backup quality things where like, do you have a backup? People like, everyone's like, yeah, of course we have a backup, but it's like for this part of your business, untested, not configured properly. And, obviously it doesn't matter until the day it does matter. And then it is the most important thing in your business. Right. So, so that is something that I think it's worth any CEO or leader at a mid-sized company, small company should just think about how are our backups? What are we going to do if something really bad happens?
I think that's what Kim Commando says, something along the lines of, you get backup religion when you've had a disaster and you can't recover. So
yeah. And then, the third piece, so I'll say Office 365 backup quality. And then people say, okay, let's rely on cyber insurance. Cyber insurance to me is, it might not be control because you're kind of technically transferring a risk to the insurance company, but that transfer is not that successful. I just read an article today that if you have a standalone cyber insurance policy, so standalones meaning that's the only thing you have from the insurance company, their payout is on 28% of claims. And so just think about that. Like for your fire insurance, have you ever heard of a neighbor who had a fire that didn't get paid from the insurance company? Like almost never, right? But for cyber insurance, 3/4 of people are not going to get paid out for the standalone. For the one where they have the package claim or the package insurance, I think it was something like 37%. But the point is that cyber insurance is not necessarily a great transfer because in the case of a fire, they say, well, you have smoke detectors, you have the fire alarm, you have fire doors, fire in the fire code. Dude, okay, perfect. We're going to give you your payout. For cyber insurance, did you have multi-factor turn on? Did you have encryption turned on? And everyone's like, oh no. And they say, well, you're not getting your payout. It's basically like, they haven't done a lot of the basics in their have they patched? They haven't done a lot of the basics in their program, so there's no payout. And that's one of the reasons. There are other reasons as well, but that's something that's, I think, giving folks a false sense of security.
Yeah, and we had Mike Rastigue from Crum and Forster Insurance on a few weeks ago, and he was speaking exactly to that. And I guess one of the things that they're trying to do in the insurance industry, at least with his firm that he works with, is that they're trying to get out in front and do an assessment like 3 months before the policy is due to make sure that you're not missing those gaps, because they obviously don't want to underwrite something that doesn't have MFA in place because they won't pay out. So that is a huge gap. And I'm glad you pointed that out. And actually, shortly before the podcast today, I saw that on LinkedIn. So thank you for posting that. I just hadn't had a chance to respond. So I know that, and as well too, that being an InfoSec is a very stressful environment, particularly being up the chain, and being an entrepreneur is very stressful, and being a CEO responsible for several staff is very, very stressful. How do you deal with the stress?
How do I deal with the stress? Okay, so
outside of making great videos, how do you deal with the stress?
That's fun. Laughter definitely helps. I would say for the most part, I don't know, there's probably a personality defect. I don't know that I get a ton of stress from all those things. Obviously, if something bad were to happen to one of my clients, that's not a very unhappy day. I do get some stress in those cases. One thing actually I started doing is guided breathing exercises. So there's this guy, Wim Hof. He has a YouTube video, and I've been doing that, and it's like super relaxing. Really enjoy that. Love going for walks, that sort of thing, exercise, kind of the normal things. But the breathing has been really interesting. I love reading. That's something that I would say is really calming. And then love hanging out with my kids, playing games with them, doing stuff with them. When it's basketball season, I coach both of their basketball teams. And love that. And I don't know. I would say just probably normal stress stuff. But everyone, the interesting thing is, in my mind, everyone, regardless of who you are, role, cybersecurity, whatever, you could be, garbage collector and you're stressed out about stuff, right?
True.
It doesn't, it's, I think a certain personality type gravitates to certain roles. And I would suspect that in general, cybersecurity people, of course you're gonna get stressed out about certain things, like there's huge consequences with some of the stuff we do, but I just gonna suspect that your risk aversion is maybe in a different place than other people's would be. But I just wouldn't dismiss anyone's stress in any industry or any, they could have nothing to do and they could still be super stressed out.
That's a very, very valid point. And I totally agree. So fractional CISO, you recently opened up a Toronto office, if I'm not mistaken.
We opened a Toronto office, so we're open for business in Toronto, and it's been a great experience. The paperwork was not a great experience, just to be clear. But so we have a team of 2 in Toronto. I was up there a few weeks ago, and had a great meeting with the team there. And we're looking to just grow our business internationally. Toronto is international, but it's not that far. We're in the Boston area, so it's not that far from here.
Right. And future plans for the firm? Continue your growth?
So future plans for the firm. We're going to continue to do our thing. We have a bunch of job recs open right now, so hopefully we'll be adding folks. adding clients. We're going to work on improving kind of the operationalization of a lot of the things, the services that we deliver, to make ourselves more efficient, and continue to have a really high bar for the folks that we hire, so we can deliver high quality services to all of our clients. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like, are we opening up in another city? Maybe, but no current plans for that. I think more just focused on doing a great job with the folks we have, the people we have, and the types of clients we have, and then growing incrementally at this point.
That's awesome. I love your story. Website is fractionalciso.com. I got it right?
Fractionalciso.com.
Very easy to remember. That's great for sales, without a doubt. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a wonderful conversation. Look forward to seeing Fractional CISO grow more. If you're interested in fractional virtual CISO, particularly in the SaaS technology space, give Rob a call or email. And thank you again, Rob, for joining us, and stay secure, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Greg.